showtime!
So you want Tighnari, or maybe when you first heard of him you thought, wow, that'd be pretty cool to have. He's a new Dendrobo DPS. What's not to love? Maybe you really like the way he plays with his ears. Or maybe you just liked his sassy attitude in the story. But I think a lot of people, the moment they heard that he was going to be on the standard banner, decided they're absolutely not pulling for him no matter what. And honestly, not a bad move. Everybody loses 50-50s, except of course your good friend Jeff, who never loses 50-50s and gets every character and totally doesn't spend money. But I think if you really want Tighnari and you're really sold on him, but you're telling yourself you're doing the smart thing and waiting for him to come on the standard banner, I think you might be making a mistake. We all know that person, or we were that person, or still are that person, that have been waiting for the same standard character since basically the moment they started the game, in some cases for as long as almost 2 years. I was very close to being that person myself. I had Jean C6 by the time I still had only one copy of Chi-Chi, which, well, how the past few patches have not been kind to me. But don't get me wrong, as much as I hate Chi-Chi's cons, I'd rather have them than just get extra Jeans for more star glitter. But regardless, Chi-Chi is probably the last character I ever won cons for in this entire game. But in my time of being a content creator, I've heard comments from people saying they have C6 Chi-Chi and actually no copies of other characters, which that is that's a big oof. You gotta be a real big Chi-Chi fan to not be upset about that one. But stories like that one are not that hard to come across. You hear a lot of people that are just missing one of them, maybe two of them, or they're missing all of them and they just keep getting cons for the same one over and over again. The issue with that is that's about to get a little bit worse. I'm sorry for the people who've been waiting for Kaching or Diluted, because your odds are about to go from 1 in 5 to 1 in 6 when you're losing your 50-50s. But that is the odds a lot of Tighnari wanters are about to put themselves in when they decided that they're just going to wait for him to become standard and they'll get him on that, which is totally fine. If you're comfortable with the odds of getting him, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if you're going to get him 2 years from now, as long as you're going to be content with using him 2 years from now. But much like the standard characters that we had in the beginning, I don't think he's going to be as good then as he will be right now. Obviously, our Dendro choices are extremely limited, and that quite frankly works in his favor at the moment. I think one of the main issues a lot of Tighnari wanters are probably facing right now is, as much as they may want him, they know he's going to be standard, so we're always going to have the option to get him, or rather a chance, no matter how low it may be. So it's really hard to imagine sacrificing one of those future characters that may be really cool, like even the Dendro Archon, or a character that is going to always technically be there. I really don't envy the situation those of you who really want him are in. There are so many cool characters on the horizon, and now you've got this one in front of you who maybe you really want, but he's going to be standard. I obviously decided to get him because I want to get every character when they come out, and I'm definitely not comfortable trying to just gamble on losing 50-50s to get him, and plus, you know, I'll get his cons, and I think his cons are a little bit more exciting than the typical standard character. So real quick, I'm going to tell you my thoughts on him. This isn't a guide, this isn't really a meta-analysis, because I think it's way too early to tell. Building him up has obviously been a little bit of a challenge. We've got a whole new region, new boss, new talent books, everything. So far, I was able to get him up to 89 out of 90, get his talents up to a decent enough level for me, and get his weapon to 90 as well. And I think he's okay. I think he's a perfectly balanced DPS, and that's not a bad thing to be. I also think units like Yoimiya or Ayato are also balanced DPS. Tighnari is a really fun DPS to play. I think he's got a very active playstyle. If you didn't like a character like Ganyu because she felt a little bit too slow and a little bit too boring because you basically just sit there like a turret and shoot charge shots, you might like Tighnari a little bit more. He feels a lot like a quick swap DPS. After his skill, he has a lot of inputs very quickly, and he's got a 40 energy burst with a 12-second cooldown. That's always pretty fun to have. The main downside is, well, something you're used to hearing about a lot of characters, and that is that he's mostly single target. I think there's definitely an argument to be made that his really fast playstyle could also be considered a downside. And what I mean by that is if you're a really slow or sluggish player, maybe you don't aim very quickly, you might end up losing a lot of overall team DPS by spending too much time aiming your shots because they come out so quickly. And I do really think the idea behind him is to just use his abilities and his 3 fast charge shots as quickly as possible and then swap off to other characters. Now, if your main concern is meta power, I don't think I would recommend pulling for him. Certainly not if pulling for him means that you're going to be sacrificing pulling for someone like the Dendro Archon when we get her, or one of the many other characters that we know basically nothing about, but we know that they look cool. For all we know, even despite the fact that Tighnari is a standard character, maybe he will have reruns. I mean, we know for sure that they didn't say anything about his weapon. We don't know if that's going to be on the standard banner. I don't think it will be, but maybe they said it would be in some post somewhere that I haven't seen. I think the good news is, if you do wish for him and you get him and you end up getting copies of him in the future, I think his early cons are actually pretty decent. His C1 is a 15% crit rate buff that will apply to most of his damage, his charge attack, and his C2 is basically just 20% dendro damage. These aren't the most exciting cons in the world, but that's pretty normal for a standard character, but they are pretty decent. And going all the way up to his C6, that basically turns him into something more like Ganyu, where he can actually stay on the field and do his charge attacks, and it won't take him 7 years to do so. If you're someone who really wants him, you probably already rolled for him. But maybe if you were on the fence and you're still on the fence, you should probably just consider what you're signing up for. It could take you a long time to actually get him, especially if you're actually a free-to-play player, not someone who just claims to be while spending on the Welkin and Battle Pass and all that stuff. It could literally potentially take you years to get a copy of him. And who knows, maybe they'll even add more characters to the standard banner, making the odds even worse. I don't really think that's going to happen, to be honest. I think this was just a special case to give Dendro some representation on the standard banner outside of just a 4-star. And hey, look, whatever you decide to do, I wish you the best of luck, whether it be waiting for him to come home on a 50-50 or getting him now. But based on the banner sales alone, it doesn't look like a lot of people are taking the bait on this one, and really, I don't blame them. Whole lot of cool ass characters coming, and quite frankly, they're all a lot cooler than him, and he is definitely not as cool as my patrons. But thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.
Attaboy!